Hi, Kevin Coop here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So there's a phrase I bumped into recently that I think is kind of interesting. It comes from the venture capitalist world, and the phrase is narrative violations. And basically, what a narrative violation is when the facts actually bump into and contradict conventional wisdom. Um, as we all know, conventional wisdom is often not very wise. New York Times had a story about how narrative violations, they gave some examples, like when a ride sharing startup actually starts to make money, or if crime actually goes down in San Francisco. Again, we thought the story was going in this direction, but sometimes the story takes on a new direction, which would readjust how we have to think about whatever the subject happens to be. Hey, listen, things are very rarely exactly as we'd like them to be, and things are very rarely the way we think they are, right? There's always hidden layers that we don't know, and a narrative violation is sort of when those layers come to light. Now, I think it's very comfortable to think of narrative violations as things that happen in other organizations that we see with a kind of third party dispassion. But in fact, I think narrative violations are things we need to embrace. We actually need to instigate within our organizations, right? You can look around and say, okay, how is our story being told, and how can we add a new chapter? How can we add new nouns, new verbs, new pictures, new colors that are going to give our story a different shape and make us seem different to the customer, more compelling to the customer, and allow us to be more competitive in the marketplace? Obviously, in line with whatever your value proposition happens to be, but there's always different ways to come at a business's story. And I think as we go into 2020, companies ought to be looking around and saying, hey, okay, let's talk internally. How can we violate the essence of our narrative in a way that is going to make sense for the business? It's sort of the same thing as what we were talking about, Tom Furphy and I, last week when we talked about in the innovation conversation. We played that game of will should, all right, looking around and challenging people within your company to say, okay, what do you think will happen in the coming year? And then what do you think should happen in the coming year? And then how do we actually try and make the should stuff happen? Same thing with narrative violations. Look around, say, okay, what's our story? And how can we create something different within our story that is going to make us more competitive? I think it's something we all have to do, especially as we roll into the new year. I mean, bring on the new year. Let's tell our stories differently. Anyway, that's what is on my mind as we move into 2020. And as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.